I found Genshin Impact's training dummy.
Or should I say, training doll. Not to say that there is an actual official training mode in game right now, but instead that I found something that's already in the game that enables us to run our own DPS tests and benchmarks for characters and sets, no spreadsheets or a PhD in math required. And the best part is that it is both simple enough for anyone to use, as well as robust enough for serious testing. Hello everyone and welcome to the first episode of the newly rebranded Xander's Laboratory, where we rock around and find out. I'm your host DXander, and Xinjian's still here. I just wanted to make my brand's name my own instead of using someone else's IP. But Xinjian's still the queen here. Also, I wanted to thank everyone for sticking around. I know it took a lot of time to upload a new video. You know, depression and stuff. But we're back, and moving forward I will be uploading once every 2 weeks. Or else. Alright, with that out of the way, let me show you how to run DPS test in Genshin Impact. Let's start by quickly discussing the state of Genshin DPS test and the need for a new, reliable test. As previously stated, Genshin has no built-in training mode, DPS benchmark, or otherwise. If you have seen my previous videos and any other YouTubers' videos, you may have noticed that, other than Masanori or the Abyss, everyone tests characters on different enemies. Sometimes even multiple enemy tests per character. This is useful to have some form of benchmark, but it makes the results non-comparable with one another, as if artifact, RNG and character stats wasn't bad enough. This is also why theory crafting is useful, to avoid dealing with only RNG and go straight to the theoretical optimal values, which are directly comparable between theory crafters. Obviously, this is not the sole reason why theory crafting exists, nor is it all that does. That is simply what is relevant to this topic. I believe that one of theory crafting's strengths lie in providing a clear goal to optimize our characters so that we don't waste our resin or time getting and testing bad or pointless artifacts. Another of theory crafting strengths is finding out which characters synergize with one another so that we can make an efficient use of our primogems, or at least knowing what we're getting into when we go for that waifu or husbandable. But theory crafting is not a simple task, and it's certainly not for everyone. That is why we need a simple, reliable, comparable test for everyone. In fact, this video originally started as a Dia builds test video, but slowly expanded and changed into the quest for a reliable test in Genshin Impact. However, that Dia builds video is coming, so make sure to subscribe to be here for that. You won't believe what a couple of archons and the right set can do for a girl. But back to this video. I started my channel by testing on Masanori. He has a built-in timer and pretty standard resistances of 10% across the board, which make him better than most world bosses. But as I quickly found out, he also has pretty obnoxious RNG, and some animations where he just decides not to take any damage for a while. This makes it so that any character or build that I tested needed to be rerun many times, so that the RNG didn't mess the test. But also, I needed to align my rotations to his phase change so that no meaningful damage is wasted, which didn't quite make for a good test. Tired of all of this, I started to look for my perfect test, starting with the world bosses. And every single one of them didn't work out. They have too little HP to make any meaningful test, they have their own mechanics, shields or invulnerability periods, and they have different resistances which might prevent them from being usable tests for certain elements. But as I was doing my weekly bosses, it hit me. The Raiden. Her first phase has standard resistances, with only a couple of attacks that could mess up the test due to invulnerability. And all I have to do is to count the depleted pixels of her HP bar the moment that she changes to the next phase, divide that by the total number of pixels of her HP bar, multiply that value by her total HP, and divide that by the time it took to get there, and we get a DPS measurement. Oh god, that's not gonna work. But, okay, hear me out, okay? There exists a weekly boss with an almost piñata first phase, mostly standard resistances, plenty of HP, and no shields. A boss that is just an enemy that sits there and takes all your damage until you deplete its full HP. And then it moves on to the second phase, at which point
the test is complete. And that is the Hat Guy. With around 750,000 HP, resistances of 10% except for Electro, and the only RNG that you have to worry about is that sometimes he may move a bit too high for certain but not all characters to hit him. He is by far the most consistent and resistant enemy in the game to run tests.
And all you need to do to get a result is 1. Start a timer the moment you hit him. 2. Stop the timer when the phase ends. And 3. Divide that 742k HP by the time you got. And there you have it. A DPS value for your character and build. Easy as 1, 2, 3, as simple as Do-Re-Mi. I would, however, recommend running the test around 5 times and average the results to account for crits RNG, but feel free not to do that. I will do that statistical validation in all my tests moving forward so that I can present the best results for you. If you're wondering why 5 times and no more nor less, I did test it for 10 times or more, and the results were not so far apart enough to justify all the time invested, so I decided to leave it at 5.
Now, I do have to address a couple of limitations with this method. Firstly is that, very obnoxiously, he has a 50% resistance to Electro. Why? He is perfect otherwise. But alas, that's just the way it is. So that's one element that won't be able to be tested in a comparable way to other kinds of damage. Secondly, is that you need a good healer or shielder in your team in order to run the tests, because the Hat Guy deals a lot of undodgeable damage during this phase. This could potentially be an issue for accounts that do not have enough survivability. And lastly, on the other end of the power scale, when trying to test hyper-invested teams, this test may still be insufficient. As you can see with my Eula here, I'm getting a time of 17 seconds, but dealing plenty more damage than his full HP bar, yielding a misleading result of 43k DPS when she actually dealt well over 1.1 million damage in the same time, for around 64k real DPS. So if you're a whale, you could give this test a shot to see if it is sufficient for your needs, but know that it is very likely that your power level breaks this scale.
Nonetheless, I'm pretty happy with this test and I'm going to be using it moving forward, perhaps until the day that they add an actual training mode. What's more, I'm happy to share this discovery with you all, and I hope that you give it a try. Before making this video, I tried to look for what the community uses for tests and if someone used the Hat Guy for it, but I couldn't find anything. If I missed it, know that it was an honest mistake, and I'll be happy to check any links and sources that you can provide me to make a correction. Of course, this is just the damage test tool, and getting good, reliable, comparable results from it depends on how many variables you can control. This is a laboratory after all. But feel free to experiment yourself, to try out this tool, and above all, to rock around and find out. That is all from the laboratory this time. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and follow me on Twitter, should you still use that thing. If you don't use Twitter, let me know what you use so that I can make a page at a better site. And remember, the difference between just rocking around and doing science is to record it and put it on a YouTube video. See you next time.